Unless you live in France, not wearing proper CE approved gloves while riding a motorcycle is entirely your choice. Though, so is teabagging an electric fence. I wouldn't recommend either. In this video, we're going to hear the opinions of 1,011 members of the UK's biggest motorcycle club, BikeSocial, to find out how you can choose the best gloves for your riding. Just like the best helmet video, which you can see up here, this is about helping you make the right choices. There's no way anyone can tell you what's the best of anything unless they've tried them, absolutely all of them. And even though I've been reviewing gloves and all other riding kits since the late 90s, I certainly haven't. It makes no difference to me at all what brands you choose. And our videos will never have sponsors influencing us, so what you're going to get here is my opinion and the opinions of more than 1,000 BikeSocial members. Being a member of BikeSocial is free if you buy your insurance direct from Bennetts, or anyone can join. Just head over to bikesocial.co.uk/join to find out more. And while you're there, check out the hundreds of discounts on kit, training, track days and more, as well as some of the incredible competitions and VIP experiences. So a huge thanks to everyone who filled in the survey, and well done to our winner of the £250 prize draw. Who needs to check their email? These were some experienced riders in this survey, with 60% of them having ridden for more than 20 years. There are a lot of glove brands out there, but when analysing this data, I had to have a cut-off point where I knew there was a reasonable spread of opinions. You just can't compare the average opinions of 100 people in Alpine Stars gloves, for instance, against one person in a pair of Kushitanis. It can easily get skewed. Now, the cut-off here was a 3% response for a brand, so you're only going to see the most popular from our survey in all of this. Over the years, as I run more of these, I hope we'll get a wider database, but there's so much you can check for yourself when looking at gloves in store that whatever brand or model you're interested in, this should help you make the right choice. Alpine Stars, followed by Dainese, then Rucker, then Nox, were the most desired brands in our survey. But as we're going to find out, that doesn't mean they're always what owners of these brands were the most impressed with. Oxford gloves are the most associated with value, followed by RST, then Alpine Stars. And Alpine Stars was a brand most associated with quality, followed by Dainese, then Rucker. But again, the experiences of owners don't necessarily reflect that. So we've looked at the perception of the gloves. Now let's get into what people really think of what they own. And before we look at them, I thought it was interesting to know that in this survey, 58% of people didn't care if their gloves matched their kit. 30% like the colours to match, but only 5% prefer the same brand as their jacket or leathers. How do you choose yours? Let me know in the comments below. Now then, let's first look at summer gloves. Of all the brands our 1,011 respondents had to choose from, these were the most commonly owned, with 3% or more of the responses. There were many others, but in this survey we didn't have enough reliable data. Alpine Stars, of course, is available in a huge number of dealers, so it's no surprise to find a lot of people own this brand. We've also already seen that it's the most desirable, and I'm sure the cool logo and Marc Marquez helps that. Of those 11 brands, this chart shows how the prices paid are spread out. And remember, we're looking at summer gloves only here. Quite a few people are getting those Alpine Stars at some relatively low prices, while Nox is clearly at the upper end of the price range. Some people who own them even having paid more than for some Ruckers, which has a reputation of being one of the top end price bracket. Despite Oxford being the most associated with value, the prices owners of these brands paid show Weiss has the slight edge. If you want to look closer at these graphs, because I am going a bit quick, there's a link in the description where you can download them all as a PDF. BMW owners say their summer gloves are the most comfortable, but overall the scores are pretty high among these, the most popular gloves in the survey, which likely means that people are trying them on before they buy them. Remember that these aren't necessarily the 11 most comfortable gloves available, they're just the ones we have the most data on. Fortunately, getting a good fit is easy with gloves. When you try them on, make sure they slide on easily but aren't baggy. If you can get hold of a sizable chunk of leather or fabric and pull it away, that could be uncomfortable on the palm as it rucks up, and it could create a weak point in a slide. It creates like a tear point. Check the bottoms of the glove fingers reach the webs of your hands, while the tips don't have any loose flappy bits, but also aren't tight. That finger length needs to be just right. Try a few on and you'll soon get a good idea of what works for you. Not all brands are the same. Make a fist and check the fingertips don't go too tight, or that the webs between your fingers don't get pinched. Now, these Racer high-speed gloves are the absolute best fit of any race glove I've ever tried, but they are expensive at about £190. This is a bit of a best kept secret brand, so I'm not surprised it didn't show up in our survey, but they're well worth trying on. Again though, they fit my hands really well. They might not fit yours as good. You can see I've had these a long time and I do get a lot of use out of them. On the other hand, these RST TrackTech Evo 4s cost £90 and the fit is still excellent on me, 95% as good as the racers. I had the TrackTech Evo Rs before these, which are very similar, and they've lasted well. They have some bits have pulled away, they're getting pretty raggedy, they don't wear as well as a pair of gloves that cost more than twice as much. You do get what you pay for, but these are still good gloves. It really is vital though that you try gloves on. I've just got a hold of some Alpine Stars gloves to review, and while I'm usually a large, I couldn't get my hands in these, so I had to go for the XL. Don't assume brands use the same sizes. In fact, don't always assume that one brand will always be consistent in its sizing. As with all the gloves here, you'll be able to find the reviews on BikeSocial, where we have a huge library of in-depth, honest tests carried out over thousands of miles by us and BikeSocial Club members. There's a link in the description. BMW once again took the top place for feel of controls. In summer gloves, you'll tend to have the thinner palms, so you shouldn't really have any issues feeling the grips and levers. Do check for any lining though, some might feel better to you than others. And the most confidence-inspiring summer gloves when it comes to safety were the Nox in our survey, and as that's the main selling point of the brand, it's no surprise. While still not worryingly low, the Triumph brand got the lowest score, though we need to remember that many of these could have been more custom or street style gloves that people were commenting on. The point is, all motorcycle gloves sold have to, by law, be CE approved, so look for this label. Bike gloves must be tested to EN 13594 2015, at least at the time of this video going out. And they'll have a number 1 or a number 2 beneath the pictogram. Level 2 is the higher performance class. Testing at both levels involves checking the glove's ability to resist being pulled off in a crash, tear strength, seam strength, cut resistance, and impact abrasion resistance at the palm. In level 1 gloves, the KP symbol means they have knuckle protectors that have been tested. In level 2 gloves, protectors must be fitted and they have to absorb more energy than specified for level 1. So if they're fitted, you should see this under the pictogram of the rider. The cuff length's also rated level 1 or 2, so if it's a short glove, regardless of the results of the other tests, it'll always be a level 1 glove. It's really important to see the pictogram and EN 13594 2015, as some dodgy companies have been known to use a CE certification for die fastness, which is used in gardening gloves. They say they're CE certified. Yeah, they're CE certified for digging up weeds. Right into this world. To be honest, if you buy from a reputable store, you shouldn't have any problems, but check for that label and be wary of anyone who tries to tell you that the gloves they sell are safe despite not being certified. It's possible they could be, but there's no guarantee, and that seller's breaking the law, so you have to question how trustworthy they are. Other things to look for are scaphoid protectors. They can help the hand slide in a crash, reducing the chance of your palm grabbing on the tarmac and the force breaking the bone in here. Another feature you'll most likely find on sports bike gloves is the ring and little fingers are joined. Fascinating. You don't notice this when riding, but it's there to reduce the chance of your little finger getting broken in a crash. These Alpine Stars GP Plus R V2s have it. I haven't had a chance to test these yet, but they retail at £200, putting them well into the upper price bracket. You'll find different types of leather in gloves, and obviously you'll find fabric gloves in more, typically in more wintry gloves. Kangaroo hide is popular in the palm because it gives good levels of abrasion resistance while remaining relatively thin. You might find goat skin too, which is softer and more pliable than cowhide, though might not be as strong. But that can depend on the quality used and how it's shaped. But again, that's why I would only ever recommend properly CE approved gloves, as this gives you some confidence in the safety. Because there's so many different ways, you've got a goat and a cow and people think, well, it's their skin. The tanning process to make leather does make a huge difference. Not to mention the way the leather is sliced and the different layers of it depend on how high up, depends on how tough it can be. The point is, it's complicated. CE testing, CE approval gives you that confidence that you're spending your money on something that at least reaches a minimum level of safety. And one more thing to consider is the length of the gloves. Short ones, like these Alpine Stars Ray-Ban V2s, look great on classic and street bikes, but they can't offer as much protection as a gauntlet. You'll always find race gloves reach further up the arm. Now, the wrist restraint is vital in a glove and one of the first things I check. Nox got the highest rating here, but it's easy to find out how well the gloves you're looking at perform. Pop them on, close any zips or flaps to a comfortable position because you don't want to pinch your wrist and get tingly fingers. Then try pulling them off. If they slide off really easily, you don't need me to tell you what that could mean in an accident. If the gloves won't stay on your hand, make sure they stay in the shop. Also, check that wrist restraint that's got a little tag on the end so it can't pull through the loop, because it's really annoying when it's able to. The fastening around the cuff is less about safety, though there are some different styles. And some people do worry about the boa fastener on Nox, but this is actually coated wire, it's not just a plastic string. And I've never had any problems, and I have tried breaking it. I've tried to be abusive with it because that's what I've got to do. You don't want sweaty hands. And Nox came out on top in our survey for ventilation too. Look for vents and for perforations in the leather, but not running into stitches as it can make them weaker. Don't assume the vents go anywhere. Try blowing into them and feel for the air, as some are just decorative. It's not always that easy, but do the best you can to check, because some of the cheaper range tend to sometimes have decorative vents. Owners of Rucker gloves say theirs are the most die fast, followed by Nox, BMW, and not too far behind by Furigan. This is something that's tested as part of CE certification, but some are still better than others. I found these RSTs left my hands a bit black for the first few weeks as my sweat pulled some of the dye out, but it's not the end of the world. But, if you ride to work, especially if you've got, a suit job, it can be worth considering. Styling's really subjective, but BMW owners love the look of their gloves the most. Nox was close behind, though my wife thinks the Handroids are creepy. Despite the survey indicating that Oxford gloves have a reputation for being the best value, owners of Weiss gloves said they give the best bang for the buck. RST and Risha followed not too far behind, though I think it's interesting that BMW, Nox and Rucker also came pretty high. Now, obviously these tend to be more expensive, but owners clearly think it's money well spent. So, by averaging all the scores, we can see that Nox wins the award for the BikeSocial Community Best Overall Summer Glove Brand. They are great gloves, and I do like my Handroids, though my one reservation of these is that on some bikes the finger armour can be a little thick. At Fireblade launch, I had the lever restricted a bit when braking hard with two fingers, so make sure you check and adjust the span before you go out. My personal recommendations from the gloves I've used are the £90 RST Track-Tex for budget sports gloves, and the £190 Racer High Speed if you're feeling flush. For short cuff gloves, I really rate the £75 Furigan D30 James gloves, which I and my wife wear. My only criticism is that after a couple of years I broke one of the zip tags, so had to pop a split ring on there. If you want a short glove, but in a modern style, then these Spiddy X-Force gloves have an RRP of £119.99, but they're really light and cool to wear and have this absolutely brilliant fastening system. It's worth using just because it's cool. Now, let's look at gloves for wet rides. These are the ones you'd wear in spring and summer more than winter, and Risha was the most popular in this survey. Our 3% cut-off point meant we saw 10 brands in here, we had 11 in summer. Unsurprisingly, Rucker's the most expensive among this group, while our respondents spent the least on Oxford gloves. Again, remember that you can download all of these graphs from the link in the description if I go too fast. Rucker and BMW were voted the most comfortable of these most commonly worn brands, though again, they all did reasonably well. Waterproof summer gloves can of course be much more lightweight than winter mitts, but they still have extra lining inside. Gore Grip is one to look for, which sees the membrane bonded to the outer shell, which should make for a better feel. It's still not as good as a summer glove, but it can help. Now, one thing to watch for with any lined glove is how well secured that lining is. We'll cover that more in the winter gloves. Fortunately though, tech like Gore Grip should definitely help. Rucker and just behind Held were voted the most confidence-inspiring for safety. Now, everything we talked about in the summer gloves applies here, so if you skip past that, I would go back because the safety thing it's pretty critical. I do want to flag up these Held 2-in-1 gloves at this point though, as they have this twin pocket design that allows you to have a thinner palm for warmer weather, though they're definitely not summer gloves, or a thicker one for when it gets really cold. I'll come back to these later. Held had the best wrist restraint of these most popular gloves, and they were also voted the best ventilated or cool feeling. Obviously, you're not going to have summer glove ventilation here, but these clearly were ones that people felt didn't get too hot. Our respondents said that Rucker was the best for dye fastness and made the most stylish spring-summer wet ride gloves. Held came out as the best for warmth, comfort in spring and summer, and Rucker was voted the most waterproof glove brand in this group, though Held wasn't far behind. BMW and the most popular brand Risha also did well. Alpinestars got the lowest score here. You might find short waterproof gloves like the £75 Fugan TD21 All Seasons. These are really designed for summer showers as the short cuffs mean they don't seal well with your jacket, so water easily gets in. I know some riders who like this kind of glove, and these TD21s are great, but personally I find all of this style of waterproof glove to be too hot for summer but not waterproof enough for proper wet weather use. Personally, I think that any glove designed for rain should have an integral visor wipe fitted, but not all do, and not all work particularly well. Held was voted as the best brand here by our respondents, closely followed by BMW and Spada, then Rucker. It's in spring and autumn that you can get that worst of conditions, I think, when it's stopped raining but there's spray coming up from the road that quickly bakes onto your visor. I've found myself following close behind cars, willing them to use their poorly adjusted screen wash in the hopes of getting some water onto my crusted up visor. Now I know some people fix a cut tennis ball onto the bars with a wet sponge in it for a quick wipe, but a great solution is Visor Cap, which straps to the back of your glove and has a reservoir that you fill before you leave. Now this keeps the covered sponge moist, so when you swipe one way, the soft rubbery cover folds out of the way and gives your visor a nice damp wipe. Then when you go the other way, it flicks back over and squeegees off any remaining moisture. If you commute, it's definitely worth a look, so I'll stick a link in the description. And that's not an affiliated one, we're not making any money out of this. Held got the vote for best value, though Risha was nipping at its heels. Interestingly, 56% of our respondents wear their gloves over the sleeves of their jackets. Now this isn't the best way to stay dry really, but we'll cover that in a moment. So, averaging out the scores, Held wins the BikeSocial Community Award for best spring-autumn wet weather gloves, with BMW and Rucker close behind. For my recommendations, I used to wear these £170 Alpine Stars Patrons, which I found kept me really dry, though I managed to wear them out after a year when the lining tore. These Oxford Mondials retail at $99.99, though like most of the gloves here, it's always worth shopping around. And if you're a BikeSocial member, make sure you check the offers available as you can save a fortune with the deals. And these gloves aren't bad, though I do find them too warm for some use, and I had the lining pull out on the thumb. I've had these Nox coverts for about 5 years and they're probably the best compromise that I've found, though keep in mind that they are ancient. There's a new version available that retails at $139.99, but I haven't tried them, so I can't tell you how they compare at all. Now, as I started filming this, I got a pair of Alpine Stars Range 2-in-1 gloves, which have a removable separate inner. Now these Gore Grip gloves seem pretty versatile, but I need to get plenty of miles in them before I can give an honest review. So be sure to check the constantly updated product tests at bikesocial.co.uk. Right, winter gloves, you know the drill by now. Only brands with a response rate of more than 3% could be included for confidence in the data. So these are the 10 most popular among our respondents. Risha is clearly the most commonly bought, followed by Alpine Stars, then RST. Oxford's winter gloves covered the lower price brackets, though Spada, RST and Risha didn't prove to be much more expensive. As with all the others, people seem to be getting a good fit before they buy, with all the brands doing pretty well for comfort, though Rucker does stand out, followed by Gerbing. The same advice applies when trying them on as we went over in the summer gloves, so check back there if you need to. Winter gloves won't ever give you the same feel as summer ones of the controls, but BMW stood out here as the best brand among our respondents and was also the one that inspired the most confidence in safety. That was a very close call across most of them. Again, the advice we went over about safety in summer gloves is important and it's the same in here, so check that out if you skip through. Triumph seemed to offer the best wrist restraint in this section, though of course this is really easy for you to check on when you try them on. Rucker was best for die fastness, again with others close behind. Even the lowest scorers, Oxford and Alpine Stars, have respectable ratings, and to be honest, I'm not surprised as winter gloves don't tend to leach like summer gloves, at least in my experience. Triumph was said to be the most stylish brand in this very subjective result, but it's the warmth that it's really important in winter gloves, and Gerbing absolutely flew ahead of the others. And of course, that's because Gerbing makes heated gloves. If you ride a lot in winter, heated kit is a must. I swear by my heated vest, and two of the biggest brands are Gerbing and Kais. Heated gloves can be wired to your bike's battery via a plug on the end of a cable that you pass up your sleeves, or by connecting them via a heated vest or jacket, so then you can have just one connection to the bike. You can even wire heated trousers and socks in if you want. Now, another option is to use gloves with batteries in, like these RST Paragons, which motorcycle instructor John Mansfield loves as he can wear them while he's standing in a car park training people. You can get 2 3/4 hours out of them in high power, 3.5 in medium and 5 hours in low. That's from my testing, not from claim figures. They retail at $189.99, include 2 batteries and the charger. These are battery powered only though, you can't plug them into the bike. Now, I like battery powered gloves as I'm often swapping between motorcycles, so I don't have to worry about wiring them in. These Furigan heat blizzards retail at a whopping £249.99, though they're Bluetooth enabled. Now, I know that might sound like a gimmick, but the fact that they're pairs means you only have to adjust the temperature on one of them, then the other follows it. If you've used heated gloves before, you'll know that when you're riding, it's easy to adjust the one that your throttle hand's on, but unless you've got cruise control and turn that on, changing the other one, I often find myself pressing it on the bottom of the mirror to try and turn it on. So you can just press one, the other will follow. That's cool. It's also pretty cool that you can set a time for them to preheat before you go out. So if you're leaving for work at 7, they can be warm and ready to go. That is a bit of a gimmick because they heat up pretty quick, but it's cool. These come with the batteries and charger, but they run at 9 volt. So you have to use Furigan's power lead if you want to hardwire them into the bike, and that costs an extra $69.99. Personally, if you're going to hardwire gloves, I think there are cheaper options. But having said that, that linked control is really cool. If you've got the money, check out the review. If you've got the money, check out the review because I go over a lot more detail of these and most of the other gloves featured in here, all of the other gloves depending on when you watch this video. Heated gloves do come in a range of prices, and our BikeSocial Community favourites, Gerbing, start at $99.99 for liners to go into what would need to be slightly bigger than normal gloves, going up to $179.99 for their top-of-the-range XRLs, which are heated, protective motorcycle gloves. Keeping hands warm is really important on a bike, and if you can't afford heated gloves, consider getting some bar muffs. If you don't want those, because for the full courier look, handguards do make a big difference as they deflect a lot of the heat-sucking wind. Heated grips really help, and if your bike doesn't have them as standard, you can always fit your own pair, with Oxford and R&G making some good ones. Remember that heated gloves don't heat the palm, they heat the top of the hand, so combining them with heated grips will keep you the toastiest. The driest winter gloves brand out of our 10 most popular was Rucker, though BMW, Gerbing, Triumph and Risha weren't far behind at all. One thing to be aware of is if you've got water blasting onto the palms of your hands, heated grips can see moisture get drawn through some waterproof membranes and into the gloves. Now, this is because of the way some membranes work, drawing moisture away from the warmest part and out to the colder. Heated grips can make the outside warmer than the inside of your hand, so the moisture can go the other way. Now, I've never actually suffered from this, but it is a thing, or it can be a thing. It really depends on how exposed your hands are while you ride, the waterproof membrane used. There's a few factors, but it can happen. Just be aware of that. But to be honest, if you've got handguards, you're very unlikely to find this. Heated gloves shouldn't suffer from this as, of course, the heating elements on the inside. Now, our respondents said that BMW winter gloves had the best visor wipe, and they really weren't impressed with Alpine Stars. As I mentioned in the mid-season gloves though, a visor cap is a great option here. If you ride in bad weather, it can be a real lifesaver. All of these 10 most popular were considered pretty good value by their owners, though Triumph just edged ahead of Risha. Now, back to how you wear your gloves. 63% say they put their winter mitts over their jacket. But honestly, this isn't the best bet, as water runs down the arm and can pour into or wick into your gloves. Sealing them under the sleeves of your jacket tends to be the far better option, and is what glove manufacturers recommend. But it does depend on your jacket being well designed, and to be honest, of all the jackets I've tested, there haven't been that many that work over the top of your gloves. Ruckers with the dual cuff design work great, but I've also found my Oxford Hinterland seals really well. And the best textiles is going to be a later video, but I've got to say that this is without a doubt the best textile riding kit I've ever used, because it's great value and it keeps you utterly dry, even through 2 days of solid Welsh rain. There are some compromises on there, but if you need some textile kit right now, I thoroughly recommend that. Check out the review in the link below. Anyway, heated gloves can be a problem here if they have batteries in, because the cuffs are almost always too bulky to go under your jacket. But even some wired ones can struggle, and particularly if they've got pockets for batteries. The RST Paragons have a drawstring to help create a better seal, and you want to make sure that the toggle's retained, so when you pull the drawstring, the toggle stays where it is and it does actually pull tight, so you're not trying to do it with your teeth. But it is interesting to see that Kaiser is about to release these G701S gloves. Now, these are pre-production, so I haven't had a chance to try them at all yet, but they're a little shorter than the standard G701s because they don't have the option of fitting a battery, which should hopefully make them easier to get under your jacket without being too short and pulling out. Again, keep an eye on our product reviews at bikesocial.co.uk. Depending on when you watch this, I or one of the BikeSocial Club members may well have tested them by now. Find the best way that works for you, but I would recommend you try tucking your gloves under your cuffs. So, by averaging out the scores, our 10 most popular gloves got, Gerbing comes out as the BikeSocial Community favourite and wins the award for the best winter gloves, thanks to the fact that if you really want warm hands, heating is the way forward. I'm surprised Held didn't make it into the most popular winter gloves, but we didn't have enough people wearing them to be included, and actually that was the same with Kais, the other manufacturer of heated gloves. I would say that these Held Twin 2 Gore-Tex 2-in-1 gloves are, for me at least, the best non-heated winter gloves I've ever worn. They retail at £175, but they're great in deep winter, and this twin pocket design means you can opt for better feel if you have heated grips, so that puts more over the top of your hand but gives you more feel, and it does make a difference if you're using them in early spring and late autumn. They're not summer gloves though. Finally, I've got another pair of pre-production Kais gloves here, the G301s. And lobster claw gloves might look weird, but keeping two pairs of fingers together makes a lot of sense in keeping your digits warm, and they really don't feel weird on the bike at all. As far as I know, this is the first ever heated pair of lobster claws, and they could prove to be the best option for proper hardcore winter riders. Again, watch out for the reviews in the link. Hopefully now you know what to look for when you buy your next pair of gloves. What I recommend based on my experience, but also the brands that 1,011 owners are most happy with. There are a couple of things I want to include in the next survey, including how secure the lining is in different brands. How they're constructed makes a big difference here, but you often only find out when it's too late and you've pulled them off with damp hands, and then spend ages trying to poke the lining back in with a pen. When you take gloves off, get a good solid grip on all the fingers, and while you don't have to take ages, gently ease your hand out. If you feel any finger or your thumb starting to pull at the lining, grab that digit and ease it clear. Trust me, once you've pulled the lining out, the gloves will always be a pain. Another thing is touchscreen compatibility, and this is one of the main reasons that I still use a sat-nav. Google Maps is fine, but you'll really struggle to touch the little buttons with gloves on. Even those with touchscreen compatibility aren't great, especially winter gloves. And to be honest, some of the best are my old race gloves that aren't meant to have it, but have so much sweat ingrained that they actually work better than those designed for it. Ultimately, gloves need to be comfortable and they need to be safe. Make sure you only buy those that are CE approved, then use what we've covered here to find the best ones for you and your budget. Now, I've had these gloves in the loft for years and years, but I've kept them as a good example of bad summer gloves. I'm not picking on Audi here, these are Audi gloves. These were from a long time ago. Their special buys are often good, and I love Audi washing up liquid. But as an example of what to look for when buying a glove, these kind of show it quite well. So, they were cheap, they were a bargain, but I think you'd regret having them. So let's try them on. So I'm a large, these are a large. Obviously size is completely subjective. You do need to try stuff on, we know that, I might be a different size. I'm XL in Alpine Stars, large and everything else. But these are, the fingertips are too short. There's seams here and here. This one's going under my nail, I'm pulling at the nail. This one's digging into the end of the finger. It's really uncomfortable, especially when I get into position holding bars. It's noticeable when you try them on. It's really annoying when you've been riding for a while. I have worn it, ridden these, but not much. Little finger, a little bit too long, not too bad. The point is, they're a little bit long there, but look at this. The amount of, if I keep it flat, but they're kind of baggy in the palm. They're a poor fit. They're a poor fit on me, so that's not good. So I've got the wrist strap done up properly. I don't want to do it any tight, it'll start pinching too much, but that's as I'd expect to do it up. And if I pull at them, they come off. So that's not good. They're harder to get off than some gloves, so they're not as bad as others. But if we keep looking at them, And they've got this, these are summer gloves, but they've got this really warm lining, and that's why I've barely worn these, because they're uncomfortable and they're way too hot. They're fully lined in there, and it's ridiculous on a summer gloves. But you think, oh, that's all right. They're covered in vents, so it won't matter. If we ever look at this one, I cut it up, and there. So there's nothing under that vent. There's no hole. It's just for decoration. This one does actually have a hole. So there's a bit of ventilation getting through there. You also get this ventilation through the mesh piece on the thumb. Personally, this is something I'm not keen on. I prefer to see leather there, but well, it's your call really. I don't like this. So that's the inside of the glove. You can see the lining here. They're not badly made actually. You know, they are a multi-layer glove. You can see if we lift this section of the palm off, there was a piece of supposed aramid in there, but I've lost it. There's a little square in there. They're okay. Again, you know, this construction is okay, but it's you know, they're not a great pair of gloves. You would be getting a bargain, but I think you would regret owning these because they're very, very uncomfortable, for me at least. Again, this isn't a reflection on Crane, the Audi brand, or anything like this, because these are many, many years old. But as things to look for, it is really important to look carefully at what you're buying, to make sure you're getting something that's gonna, you know, you're gonna get some good use out of and be worth your money. It's really important to see the pictogram and EN 13594 2015, as some dodgy companies have been known to use a CE certification for diaphanous. Diaphanous.